A player who gets slept on is Sidney Moncrief. I have a sweet spot in my heart for the players from the previous eras because today's fans don't understand the rules that was implemented back then, how tough you had to be, and you just have to be a certain individual to play back then. It was tough. Not all NBA players today are tough. They couldn't play back then. You can't tell me Stephen Curry could have played in the 80s. No way in hell. You heard what Charles Barkley said the other day. He couldn't deal with the 90 Pistons. So how he was going to deal with the 80s? The 80s was tougher than the 90s. But back to Sidney Moncrief, man. He was a player from the 80s who could lock up any perimeter player. He spent most of his career with the Milwaukee Bucks. He was the best defensive player in his era. He's the only NBA guard in NBA history to win Defensive Player of the Year twice. He was an efficient, reliable player, good explosive athlete. He shot 50% from the field his whole career. His Bucks team was the first team to eliminate the GOAT in '85. He put up 50, 40, and 9 and was averaging 26 points per game. What? But he's known for shutting down MJ and holding him below his regular average from the field. You know, Milwaukee met up with the Celtics a few times in the Eastern Conference Finals. We all know who came out on top. The great Larry Joe Bird and the Celtics. But hey, that's nothing to be ashamed of. The 80s was tough in the Eastern Conference. The 90s too. Players like Sidney Moncrief don't get celebrated like other players, but they should. This man was an absolute bucket. He was one of the first players that ran that Don Nelson fast ball. Plus, 5 years out of his 11 years in the NBA, he averaged 20. But he wasn't worrying about scoring like that. His calling card was his defense. Special player.